Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to contingency planning, understanding the challenges and what changes during a labor dispute. First of all, before I even start, I'm just going to give you my history so you understand where I'm coming from. I've been in the industry, this industry, for about 18 years. The last 10, I've been traveling around Canada helping companies of all different types, from healthcare to mines to chemical, manufacturing, etc., prepare for a labor dispute, reference contingency planning. Prior to that, I served 8 years as a coordinator on the ground. Now that everybody tells me I did so many hours and this many strikes, I'm not sure how many labor disputes I did, probably between 30 and 40, some only a couple days long, and one as long as 8 months. So I have a good experience, in labor disputes and knowing what's going to happen next. Now I'm going to date myself. Prior to that, I served in the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry and retired as a warrant officer. So that's enough about me. Let's move on. What we're going to talk about is the three main challenges. First of all, prior to a possible labor dispute, during a labor dispute, and after a labor dispute. Now, just so you're aware, when we help companies prepare, there's still only about 5% of them that actually go on strike. But all companies, they want to be prepared for the worst while they're hoping for the best. So first of all, we're going to talk about prior to a labor dispute. And a lot of companies ask me, says, you know what, Blair, how do I know if I'm going to have one? Well, first of all, if you're going to have one and the union really is present, you'll see a work slowdown and quality control issues. A lot of companies prepare for a work stoppage and they produce more stuff, and the unions know that. So that's when you'll get a work slowdown and you'll see some quality control issues. Increase, you're going to have a lot more people in WSIB calling in sick. That's one of the short tail signs. If you see some of your older members taking an early retirement, or a lot of people going on WSIB so that way they can get some money if there is a labor dispute. So that kind of tells you what direction you're going. You'll see some intimidation, usually between bargaining unit members. Some members will be trying to intimidate the other ones to vote their way. This is what we need, so you got to keep aware of what's happening there, and you got to keep the feelers out. Communication between management and employees. It's still very, very important. A lot of the employees won't know exactly what is up in the contract, what the fight is. So speak to your lawyers, your law firm that's helping you, and see and make sure you know your rights and what you can do and can't do during that time. You may see some sabotage or damage to machinery. Usually that doesn't happen and just till prior to a deadline. For an example, if your deadline is a Tuesday at midnight, and there's nothing, and you're still bargaining and there's nothing going on, you may start seeing that around 10 o'clock, just prior to that. So you should have an exit strategy to get everybody out. Now, what I mean by an exit strategy is a way to get everybody out until you either get an agreement or a strike happens. Usually what happens if companies go, you know what, we're working until 11, let's bring the ones that are on 11, let's do a shutdown order shutdown, and let's do 2 hours of safety briefing, or some kind of training where we got them all in one spot. The other ones that are coming in at 11, just stop them at the gate and say, you're going to be paid, we're waiting for a deal to be done, you're going to be paid till your end of your shift. That way it doesn't seem like a lockout unless you want that to happen. And if they do go on strike, you can stop their payment that time. When to communicate to inside and outside agencies. And you're going to have to communicate. You're working very hard to get, to get a deal, but you've got to let some of your big customers know that there could be, a slowdown and you could have a strike, so it's not a shock to them. Same with your suppliers. And see whom of your suppliers are going to continue to service you and who won't. Same thing with your trucking company. Now, if you use an outside trucking company, you want to find out what level of service they can provide you in case there is a labor dispute. Now, always make sure you get that in writing, because it's easy for me to say driving NYZ trucking company, and I'm serving you, because the chances are 98% that you're going to not have a labor dispute. So I'm going to say, I'm going to service you, and then when it happens, all of a sudden that trucking company, drops the ball. So make sure they put it in writing. That way they actually take it serious then. Product transportation. Again, see who will cross. Get intentions in writing. And if they're not going to cross, you'll find a lot of companies, even if they're unionized, and usually it's a different union. And I'll speak to one that we did where it was years ago. There was one union in the plant. There was another union that was driving the truck. So what they said is, you know what, we are going to service you, but we're not going to cross the picket line. So what they did is set up a cross-docking, and companies like us will supply trucks and drivers, bring raw product in, finished product out, and just drop it off, and they'll carry it to their destination. Okay, we already talked about cross-docking again. However, a lot of companies now prepare. There was a big company in London with the food industry, and what they did is set up a big warehouse where they had 30-day supply of their product in this warehouse. They used a different trucking company, and they took a warehouse that's off the beaten path and really hard to find, and that way they can keep their big clients serviced while there was a labor dispute, and meanwhile they're still trucking and going for the injunction. Again, shunting service. The base guy just talked about that. Companies like us can provide a shunting service, to make sure that all your needs are met. Mail service and small parts. Just prior to a labor dispute, you're going to have to let the UPS and all them companies like that know that if there is a labor dispute, you want the mail to stop at this stage of the game, and you'll have somebody go and pick that up for you. What you want to do is, if you have a labor dispute, everything that shows up at your entrance comes in. That way it makes you more powerful, and it doesn't give the union members something to build from. And how to win on a strike, and I'm going to talk about that throughout this lesson, is you keep everything boring and routine. So your mail service and small parts. Usually we provide transportation, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. In using a 15-passenger van, we can pick up the mail and small parts for you and keep that rolling. Transportation. First of all, how are they going to cross the picket line safely? Will staff use their own vehicles, or will they be transported via bus or van? Now, it depends on the industry you have. We just finished one with a healthcare industry where we supplied the vans, to move in and move out. That way, for a legal issue, we know people are used to, our people are used to crossing the line, and our security knows how to get them in, and it keeps everybody safe. So there's different ways of looking at it though, and it depends on your industry. And if you've got enough of them, a lot of companies say, you know what, I don't want to bring a bus because that just drives everybody bonkers on the picket line. It is true, for the day or two they'll be really mad at a bus, but it's really good because you've got a whole group of people that feel safe together. They're on that bus, whether it's 15 minutes to get in or 10 minutes or 5, whatever it is. You've got a whole pile of them, 44 to 50 people, be able to work right away, instead of a whole line of cars that they're going to hold up for X amount of minutes at each car. So basically what you need to do is find out how many employees need to cross at each shift. Now, there'll be some of your employees from sales to people that can actually work from home. So if that be the case, then you don't want to have to bring them in. You do want to bring employees in for each shift. And let's say you're only going to run 2 shifts, a day shift and a night shift. Then you want to divide it down, and a lot of times your office staff will be working at either one of them shifts, or some of them, for instance, your purchasing department will need to work, at regular office hours. So even though that you may have 30 in a day that's crossing, you may have 10 on afternoon shift, 15 on a day shift, and the remainder working your office. So you only need the one 15-passenger van, and they can do it in loads from there. Now, you want to use a marshalling yard, and your marshalling yard, and I got to apologize, I have a cold, so you'll hear me sniffling every once in a while. The use of a marshalling yard, we like to use a store. For an example, a Walmart. If you use a compound somewhere else, all they're going to do is put another picket line there. So that'd be 2 picket lines you have to cross. If you're using a shopping center, a Walmart, etc., the police won't tolerate them stopping the general public. So you won't have a picket line to actually cross there. And what you can do is just put one security there to make sure your vehicles are not damaged or scratched while they're at work. You must ensure you have a safety meeting with those crossing the picket line. What you want to tell them is, first of all, when I do this, what I always say is, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Blair Steele, and I have been retained in case you have a labor dispute. Don't read anything into that. It just means that your company is preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. If a labor dispute does happen, this is what I want you to do. You'll be told where the marshalling yard is. Show up at the marshalling yard prior to getting into a van or bus. What I want you to do is go to the washroom, make sure you're all good. Don't drink too many coffee that morning. Bring your lunch because it is not business as normal. And then seat yourself, make sure your car doors are locked, and seat yourself into the van. Once you're in the van, what we always tell everybody is bring a book with you. Do not make, once you approach the line, do not make eye contact, because now it's a challenge. Don't show any emotion. You'll have the radio on, just loud enough for you to hear it, because by law, they're allowed to peacefully try to persuade you not to cross the line. So you don't want to take any rights from them. So the radio's on, some soft elevator music, so everybody wants to hug each other. And then you will just read your book. Don't talk about the movie last night. Start laughing, because they'll automatically think you're laughing at them. If you do that, after a week, they will stop yelling at people because there's nobody paying attention to them. The best way of doing it. When you arrive back at the marshalling yard, the same thing when you're going out. When you arrive back at the marshalling yard, make sure you check the entrance of your tires, or check the pathway of your tires. Make sure they didn't throw any nails down. If you got any damage, let the security know right away. Just a point to note there, we always shoot film of that, so if you came with your vehicle damaged, chances are it's not going to get fixed while you're in there working. So we always find one or two to try to get a free paint job. So we always let people know that. If you're going to, if you're on medication, bring some medication with you, and extra so you can stay longer. It isn't business as normal, so you've got to bring your lunch. You're not going back and forth. And we want traffic for injunction purposes at the picket line, but what we don't want to do is cause a ruckus by you going back and forth. That will do that. We want to be the bad guys here, so and we'll explain that in a minute. Your outside agency, same with your trucking companies. If you can't make a meeting with them and give them, you know, what's happening there, what we do is give a number to our command center where when they call in, we tell them, okay, there's going to be 20 people there, there's security out there, there's an investigator with the camera, don't worry, they're ours, they're make sure that, you know, nothing happens, this is how long the holdup is, but keep your, you know, your door locked, your windows up, and we'll keep them off your vehicle, etc., etc. So, and the more communication, the better. Now, I always get this question, you know, what should you do if bargaining unit members asked to cross the picket line? And let's face it, some of them may say, you know what, I'm not going to cross the picket, I'm not going to go on strike, I'm going to cross that picket line. So let's say you got 100 employees and 7 or 8 want to cross the picket line. You can rest assured, if you had a short strike that only went 6 or 7 days, them 7 people are going to get preyed on for about, you know, a year or two, and you're going to end up losing some good people. So what I always tell, you know, the companies, you can do that, but once you let them in, you can't pick and choose who you're going to let in. So in other words, they're going to put somebody in there that, you know, that's going to let the union know exactly what's going on. So you're, just so you're aware of that. And then what you want to do is you want to see how the negotiations or talks are going. So, because you don't know if it's going to be short or is a big issue. And just to let you know, we have 6 strikes going on in Canada right now. I'm not sure how many in the U.S., but we got 6 strikes going on in Canada. And a lot of them, are longer duration than the old days. You're not seeing as many strikes. They got to be major issues to have a strike now. But usually, if it's a major issue, the union is going to try to hold out, and management is going to hold out, and they're longer in duration. So you'll have a feel for it after 5 or 6 days to see where it's going from there. And what I always advise companies to say is, tell them 5 or 6, no, we don't want to bring you in because we don't want to lose you. Unless we know that this is going to be a while. So if you can get the numbers up, if the numbers are like 25, 30, then we'll let them in. But we don't want to have a small number and end up losing them people because of your safety. I did a strike years ago for a company up northern Ontario, and they had 500 members that were on strike. Within 10 days, management came to me and said, we have 15 people that want to cross the picket line. What do you think, Blair? Basically, I told them what I would do is just wait a little bit until that number grows. You don't tell them, make that number grow, but you just say, it's too small of a number. We're thinking of your safety, blah, blah, blah. So 2 weeks later, they came up to me and said, that number is now 40, Blair. So what we did is supply transportation. We had a different marshalling yard to them, and we had replacement workers going into that same spot. So we brought that 40 in. A month later, that 40 turned into 150, and basically that strike was over about 3-4 weeks later. Security requirements. Now, here's what I always say. If you've got a couple entrances, only use the one entrance if you can get away with it. It depends on your industry and how busy you are. If you're using the one entrance, less people that we would have to provide, and or any security company would have to provide, and obviously less people, less money it's going to cost you. Normally at an entrance, and it depends on the entrance, it depends on the industry. If there's a lot of trucks coming in and out, we would supply 2 investigators and 2 security and the ship commander at that entrance. The security will be dressed according to the ministry, you know what I mean, with all the patches, the whistles. The investigators will be dressed in civilian attire, and that's the laws of the ministry. But they can actually videotape in private property and public property as for the rules of investigation. So everything that comes in or out, every conversation, every time that we call the police, let's say the vehicle is held up for 10 minutes. After 5 minutes, we're going to say that's an unreasonable amount of time. We call the police and ask for assistance. We have to show that we're directly asking them for assistance. We're usually the ones that liaison with the Picket captain. We're the ones that liaison with the police force. We're the ones that build the evidence for the injunction on that side of it. Because we want to be the bad guys here. If you do have a strike and you only go out 3 or 4 weeks, you can still keep your relationship kind of strong at that stage of the game. So, and we're talking about evidence procedures, everything, as we say, every conversation is being taped. So what we want to do is supply you enough evidence that you got to show that the police were unwilling or unable to assist and get vehicles crossed. And just to let everybody know, There isn't a police force around now that will do that without an injunction. When you select a security company, if they've done, like we have clients now that we have kept, for 20 years or more. So they're not going to go anywhere else unless they're a government, which they'll have to go to an FRP process. But but if you've never had one, you have no relationship, you should look at 3 companies and get them companies to come in and give you a briefing on their qualifications and all the services they can provide you during that labor dispute. Take them around, show them what you got, what you're going to, how you're going to work that strike, and get them to give you a proposal back. In that proposal, get them to put all these strikes that they have done in your industry and they have done in the last 3 years. Don't ask just for 3 references, because the chances are everybody can put 3 references down. You should be able to see what strikes they've done in the last 3 years and pick and choose who you're going to call. That way you can tell if that company is legit and they do a lot of labor disputes, and they're not picking and choosing who you're going to call in case in case they dropped a ball somewhere. Is an outside media expert required? Nowadays, the biggest thing is the social media. Everybody's got a camera. That's why we tell you when you're coming in or coming out, we don't want you conducting any conversations. All you do is simply read your book. Because what they will do is they will take that, they'll take a bit out of here, a bit out of there, and run it to YouTube, and it'll make you look bad. And I've seen that done so many times. Will you need replacement labor? When you're checking that security company, you already may have a labor company that supply you some workers, during your busy periods. Check to see if they will do that during a labor dispute. If they don't, and a lot of times they may drop the ball because this is not their area of expertise or labor dispute, make sure that security company has the means of supplying you replacement labor. And actually ask them what companies they have done that for as part of your reference. So it's a little separate reference. Arrange a meeting with the local police. What I always tell them is, every province is a little different. For an example, in Ontario, once you get a no board, you got 17 days later before they're in a strike position. So usually I would advise companies at that stage of the game, as soon as you get a no board, call your local police and tell them, we're working hard to get a deal with the union, but we'd be more than happy to sit down with you, the union, and the security company we retained 24 hours prior to get your rules and regulations. What that does, it tells the police that you're a good corporate citizen, you're willing to work with them, so you're starting off in the high road. And it also, because they will contact the union, it's a subtle way of letting the union know that you're prepared too, because the chances that they know that you're prepared, there is less chance that you'll have a strike. Prior to a labor dispute, decision on benefits. If you're going to cut the benefits off, and the union will say, you know what, we'll pay for their benefits, you administer it. That's a decision on you. I always tell clients, why would you do that? you know, they're the ones that choose to go on strike, but that's your decision. But if you're going to do that, that decision has got to be made prior to labor dispute. Do not, you know, 10 days after labor dispute is happening, you cut off their benefits, because now you just added fuel to a fire. Have a protocol meeting with the union. The union has to give you, you know, who is going to be the strike captains, and that's law. So what you want to do is make a protocol meeting. Your lawyer should be involved in that, and you should never try to bargain time without your lawyers involved in it. Mainly because if you agree to something, let's say 50 minutes, where it's not your busy season, but during your busy season you can't live with 15 minutes. If you agree to it, yeah, that injunction is never going to be less than that. It's really, really hard. So the lawyers will write it up, and they go through this all the time, and they'll write it up so there's no stacking of vehicles. Decide on law firm to use for an injunction. And there's some really good law firms that have a lot of good experience on labor disputes and in the injunction process. And they can actually walk you through that injunction process. During a labor dispute, you're going to see long wait times at the picket line, especially for the first day or three, because everybody's motivated right off the bat, and then they'll start breaking down in the shift. And as the strike goes longer, there'll be less people. Some action at the picket line, you may see some damage or assault. The good news is now with the social media, and everybody has a camera now, not everybody agrees to have, you know, doing damage or assaults or making threats. So there'll be a lot more evidence out there on the social media that you could use. Threats and intimidation, they'll always yell and scream and holler at you at the beginning, and there's certain people they're going to pick out. That's why I say, you know what, if you do this after about 7, if you do what we're telling you, read a book, no eye contact, blah, 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 that will keep that down after 7 days, and it makes it a lot easier for your management to come in. Now, use different operating hours. Let's say if you got a four-day work week during a strike, you may want to change that up. Start earlier one day, finish earlier, blah, blah. That helps, and it kind of breaks down the picket, so they'll have to man it all the time. Usually at night, when you see on the picket line, there are people that just want their strike pay and they don't do anything but sleep. So, and you'll see all that as the strike goes on. Never agree to a wait time unless you seek legal advice, and I can't stress that enough. Management burnout. Some management and salary workers could be doing work that is new and a lot more physically demanding that they're not used to. So you're going to see some tired individuals. You just got to keep monitoring that. You're going to see some increased hours for trucking and suppliers. For injunction purposes, you need to account for all costs associated with the strike. And that's one of the things that the lawyer is going to be asking for. And another one is irreparable harm. How many clients have you lost? What's your position in the marketplace? How is it affecting your company that way? Client or customer satisfaction. Again, keep track for injunction purposes. Decide if you'll be pressing charges if damage or assault occurs. Now, this is what I always tell companies. If you, let's say, one of the trucking one of the trucking companies had a truck in the line, and we caught a guy throwing nails underneath, and you're going to have him charged for mischief or damage. Let's say it was a flat tire, and he stabbed it, and we got it on film. Now, if you're going to do that, make sure you never drop the charge. So let's say if you had a 7-day or a 6-day strike, and you end up dropping all the charges, if you did have another labor dispute, you're going to see all kinds of bad stuff happening because they know the charges are going to be dropped in the end. If they're found guilty and they're charged and they're found guilty, terminate their employment. That can be bargained back, and that gives you another card to bargain with. How to get raw product and finished product out in a timely manner, and we discussed that, how to do that. And a lot of companies go, you know what, I'm going to use a staging area. Don't. Especially if you haven't got an injunction yet. If there's 4 or 5 trucks at the line right there, that's stuff that you need. The courts need to see that. Okay, so how to use replacement labor to get the best result. A lot of times, it depends on the industry, the company, and the size of that company. What we do is supply the replacement labor for it, but there's a learning curve. So if you bring in 150 new people, you better have enough management to guide them, all right? So you want to bring them in slow and keep adding later. And usually when we're supplying replacement labor, there's nothing that we can't find, but we say if you give us 30 days, we will find it. Any shorter than that, we can't guarantee. So, and a lot of companies are like us. How to keep main customers supplied. And we basically talked about that. Your cross-docking, that does help. And of course, you're going to keep traffic moving right from day one, or you should be right from day one. Some companies go, you know, the first 4 days we're not going to do anything, Blair. We're not going to bring people in, or you just wasted 4 days. So what you want to do is get the evidence for an injunction for when it's not in dire need, so it helps you. If you're waiting till you're in dire need, it's too late, because it's a process and it takes time. Keep the strike calm and don't engage in any activity that will give the bargaining unit members a rallying cry. A lot of times we see companies go, you know what, Blair, we're going to supply them a shed. We're going to put electricity to that, and a phone line. Once you've done that, and you allow them on your property, you'll never get them off. Because the police are going to say, well, you allowed them on there, you can't not allow them now. And that shed, every 7 days, will grow 100% bigger. There'll be tarps on it, there'll be all kinds of signs, and it won't be nice. A lot of times we have companies that bring them down coffee, and for the first 5 or 7 days, it's all good. After that, they go, well, don't try to bribe us with coffee, you got to feed my kids. So it never works out. So please keep in mind that. Your chain of command. During a strike, use your chain of command. If someone gets a threat, anything like that, use your chain of command. What we do, and companies like us do, is have a meeting every day with management, and the one management, so we're not bringing in a whole bunch because they have their job to do. And so the one guy that we're answering to, we'll tell them what happened in the last 24 hours, what we think is going to happen the next 48 hours, and all the intel that we pick up from that. Monitor social media sites or engage in outside resources like geofencing. We have a patent there, so we do monitor the social media for strikes. and we could set up a geofence around there to get everything that's tweeted, et cetera, that's happened during the strike. And it's pretty low cost, but a lot of good information on there. Passage of information up and down and across. In a strike, you got to have the flexibility to change. I always tell clients, never try to figure out what you're going to do for the first 8 weeks on a strike in detail, because everything changes, and it's going to change several times during a labor dispute. You know, how much time they're going to get held up in the picket line, etc. That makes a big difference to you. Ensure management or salary workers do not make statements to the media or the bargaining unit. Now, as part of that safety briefing, I always tell clients, you know what, because there's always somebody that's in the management or salary that is friends or relatives from someone in the bargaining unit. And say, you know what, like, I value your friendship. I don't want to lose it. We're not at war. But you know what, for the duration of the labor dispute, please don't tell me anything and I won't tell you anything. Because if you do make a statement, you can rest assured that person will tell someone and the union will use it and it'll come back to bite you. Now, what I always tell companies too is the media. You should have someone that is media savvy. If you don't have that, there's outside resources that can help you there. So, for an example, the first day that you're on strike, the radio station, the papers, all that good stuff is going to show up, and they're going to ask you questions. You know, what's this all about? You know, who's that? And the worst thing you can do is no comment, even for us. So what we say is, I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm the security here, but here's the name and number of the person that can answer your question, and it looks so much better for you. And they're all happy, and they'll give that person a call. That person is trained to say the right thing. Because the union is going to knock your brand around in the social media, so you should have someone that can fight fire with fire. Update harassment policy and have all parties sign. Okay, and this is what's going to happen after a labor dispute. So it's not just all the stuff you have to do before and during, but after is just as important. I have a lot of companies that go, you know what, we just had a 3-month strike. There's a lot of things that were said. I'm not sure, you know, how that's going to happen. Well, make sure you update your harassment policy, and again, have all parties sign. But you may want to use an outside agency to help you with that, because then it looks like it's not you that's, you know, is cracking the whip. When should workers come back? Now, it depends on the duration of your strike. You may have lost some position in the marketplace, some clients, so you may not want everybody back right away, and you may want to open it up. And I always tell clients, this is the best way to do it. Bring them back slowly. That way you can get everybody to sign them policies. You can start procedures, you know, to get that relationship back to normal. But if you bring them all back at the same time, you know, where they're outnumbering your management, it is very stressful. So you got to look at that. Reestablish a relationship between management, salary workers, and the bargaining unit. A lot of companies start a committee, and that committee is, you know, is to get that relationship back. And again, outside agency will help you with that. Again, decision on bringing in outside relationship help. Outside HR company, And what we already talked about is a start company committee. Reestablish client and customer relationship. Now, if anybody has any questions here, feel free. You can take down my email address and email it to me, and I will do my best to answer them fully to your liking. Again, thank you for tuning in, and if you want to give me a call, as our 1-800 number is right down there, and usually if you want to follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, feel free to do that. I put out a blog every couple months too to help companies, plan, and I'll pick out a certain subject within that contingency plan, and my next one will be in about 10 days, and it's a subtle, it's going to talk about subtle ways of letting the union know that you're prepared if a strike was to occur, but not slapping them in the face with it. So a subtle way of doing it, because that's your best method. All right, thank you very much for your time, and have a beautiful day.